just click the link below this YouTube video to get more information about these 3 parts. So this next one is Nam Ban Khai Temple, and it's 9th century, late 9th century. So what became the Khmer Empire came to this area in 802 AD, about 50 to 70 years before this temple was built. So this is one of the earliest temples in the empire that went from about the 9th century through the 15th century before it was overrun by Siam or Thailand. This is 1200 years old. Pretty amazing. So there's the main temple for Angkor Wat off in the distance there. Of course, when the Khmer people came here, they moved west from the former capital, and they picked this spot because it was further away from the Cham people who they were at war with constantly, and who were situated in Vietnam. And they likely built this temple here as one of the early temples of the empire in the late 9th century. Because of its elevation, you'd have a view of the entire kingdom. You could see your enemy approaching. So this is a Khmer, forgive me, this is a Cham style temple here. To see the bricks. That's how the Cham people built their temples. So that temple looks like this area must have had Cham people living here at some point, probably after the Khmer Empire moved to Phnom Penh. So this is the moat around Angkor Thom. Angkor Thom is the size of Manhattan, and we're at the south gate right now. This is the south gate of Angkor Thom. So there's a serpent that protects the gates of Angkor Thom, and it's held by these concrete soldiers, and it's a snake. It's in their hands. A few of the faces have been updated so you could see what it would have looked like at the time, but this is an original here. The years have done to this. This is a 12th century temple. Actually, Angkor Thom is the royal city. It's where the king lived. The builder king, they called him. 𝒔𝒆𝒂 VII, and as I say, this city had the royal palace in it, and it's the size of Manhattan. And one of my favorite temples in here, which we'll show you, is called Bayon, and the reason it's my favorite is it has the face of 𝒔𝒆𝒂 VII everywhere. In fact, it's the same face that's on all these soldiers, and it's the face you'll see up on the gate. There he is up there. They call him the Builder King, and probably more building was done during his reign than any other king. So Angkor Wat was about 100 years earlier. And this is one of the other theories, which I'll tell you about when we get to the Bayon temple, which was where he's buried or was buried. I'll tell you about another theory about why the kingdom fell. So this next temple is Bayon. It's a temple built for 𝒔𝒆𝒂 VII. He's what they call the Builder King, as I mentioned before. And he's built much of this Angkor Thom, this city, as I said, is the size of Manhattan. This is just a temple. It's right in the center, and it's built to honor him. And I told you I would tell you another theory of why the Khmer Empire fell. And this is a Buddhist temple, and the previous temples were all Hindu. When the kingdom converted to Buddhism, which is not completely different than Hinduism. Of course, Buddha was from the border of India and Nepal. That's where he was awakened, if you will, into present moment awareness, and where he gave his first sermon in an area called Sarnath, in a deer park there in Sarnath, which Sarnath was a deer park at the time. One of the theories is that J VII was more compassionate than previous kings, and so his army wasn't. He didn't spend as much time making his army lethal to fight his enemies. He spent more time building and more time trying to awaken his people to the present moment with Buddhism, which of course is also in Hinduism. But that was kind of the primary purpose, I think, of Buddhism. It was maybe more simplified. Some believe it can be made more simplified, and that's what kind of Buddhism was. But because he was more compassionate, and maybe his soldiers were more compassionate, they weren't as lethal. And so towards the end of his reign, when Siam attacked, and they were full bows and arrows and full helmets and shields and everything, they were able finally to defeat the Cambodian Empire, which had really ruled Southeast Asia for about 500 or 600 years. And so that's kind of another theory of why the Khmer Empire fell into ruin, because of compassion. I hadn't thought of it before, but J VII was kind of the first person to come up with the idea of MySpace or Facebook, because his face is all over the temple. Let me show you. One of the things you'll notice when you come to Bayon is the characters carved in stone. See the smile? In fact, I told you Bayon's face was on the temple. It's everywhere, literally everywhere. Can you see up there see the smile? Just a very faint smile. He was living in the present moment. He wasn't ruled by his mind. He was ruled, or he existed in experience. And it's reflected in the characters on the temple walls. It's reflected on his face, and the compassion is here in Buddhism that you see. Now, not all Buddhists, of course, are compassionate. They have Buddhists in parts. It's very unusual, but there's a sect in Myanmar, for example, where they actually will kill people. They're killing Muslims on their border. But overall, Buddhism is a very compassionate religion. It doesn't even like to kill bugs. These are Buddha mines. You're surrounded by presence here, joy in the present moment, rather than mulling over your daily problems. There's just a quiet, joyful contemplation.
It gives you an insight.
then the top one.
但是我觉得离开家的时候，他打电话一个人就对了。
Он более-менее. Он писать умеет, да.
From the back side I was thinking it's just a big pile of rocks, but now that I see it from this side, it looks like reclining Buddha laying on the whole side of the temple. So this is the elephant terrace here. Elephants, of course, were all the rage back in the day, in all of Southeast Asia, really. They were used in battle and farming and transportation. And they were used in rituals, weddings, coronations, whatever. There's elephants all over this wall. There's a Google map for this inner circle tour. It's first of 3-day itinerary for Angkor Wat. The first day is Angkor Wat itself, the sunrise in history, the first part of the inner circle tour. The second has 3 parts for the inner circle tour. Just click the link below this YouTube video to get more information about these 3 parts.